Hey, what's up everybody? Justin here to review you another cult classic for my favorite console of all time, the Sega Dreamcast, and that would be Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2, otherwise known in Japan as Shutoko Battle 2. And as for what Shutoko means, it's short for Shuto Kosokudoro, or the Shuto Expressway. And as for what Shuto means, it means capital, or in this case, Tokyo. And despite my love for racing games, the crazy thing is that I have really little to no nostalgia for the Tokyo Xtreme Racer series and only got into it just a couple of years ago. And I did enjoy other racers for the Dreamcast, such as Sega Rally 2, Sega GT, and Ferrari F55 Challenge, and Daytona USA 2001, but Tokyo Xtreme Racer just somehow never blipped on my radar until just a few years ago. But between the prime of the Dreamcast and now, I got into other games like Initial D and most notably One Gun Midnight Maximum Tune, and I didn't really get any exposure to Shutoku Batoru until I moved to Japan. And I was already a fan of, let's say, the One Gun Midnight Maximum Tune arcade gaming series by Namco, so some of my friends in that community directed me to Tokyo Xtreme Racer. I later learned that it was a long-going series dating back to its debut in 1994 for the Super Famicom, and it later got sequels on the Saturn, PlayStation 1, the Dreamcast, the PlayStation 2, and so on. And I later did some research into this and noting some of its similarities to One Gun Midnight, an anime I did a review for back in the day, and I did learn that Tokyo Xtreme Racer did take some inspiration from the original manga. So yeah, the anime aired around the mid-2000s, but the original manga had been in publication since the early 1990s, so the math does add up. Ultimately, it was inspired by how back in the 80s, street races were common on the One Gun, so it adapts that into a very unique racing game, which I'll now get into.
This isn't your typical racing game like Gran Turismo, Ridge Racer, or Sega Rally. This is a highway racing game, and you don't win by getting first place within a certain number of laps. In a sense, this kind of feels more like a fighting game, and the highway element allows to tap into that. So pretty much, at first, you roam free around the Shuto Expressway until you find an opponent. And you will have a map that will indicate where your opponents are located. Blue arrows are regular enemies that are part of a team, and the red ones tend to be the lone wolves who aren't part of any team. So you seek out any opponent of your choosing, and when you approach them, you challenge them by flashing your headlights at them. This is very true to how you challenge people to races back in the day, and this is also portrayed in One Gun Midnight. Once they accept your challenge, the race is on, and you and your opponent are given life bars like in a fighting game. And the further you're ahead of your opponent, and vice versa, and maintain that lead, the more that your opponent's life bar will deplete, and once it's down, you'll become the winner. And speaking of One Gun Midnight, Genki would later release their own One Gun Midnight game for the PS2, which I do have and plan to review at a later date. The game is simple, but by no means easy. Since you're racing on the highway, other cars will be present and may be in your way to hinder your progress, and considering how narrow Japanese roads can be, you really have to know how to control your car so you won't hit the walls, which will happen a lot. So it has a very unique learning curve. If you're going to play this on a controller, do not bother playing this on a D-pad because it's impossible to control your car with it. If you know how to gently handle the analog controller, it will make it a bit easier. And as I said in my review of Crazy Taxi, that game is easy to handle with a controller, but with Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2, it is not. If anything, this game was clearly made for the steering wheel controller, which I do recommend. And once I started playing with the steering wheel, it felt a lot more natural. However, because I've recently been using my Logical GT Force on my PS2, I felt the need to have a foot pedal and brake. On the Dreamcast steering wheel, you use the face buttons to accelerate and brake, and you have pedal shifting, which also helps. So not having an actual pedal and brake can be an adjustment for some people, especially when you play at the arcades a lot as well. The steering wheel I have is the official Sega one, but for some reason, for its North American release, I think it became a third-party one. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I have no idea, but either way, you're functionally playing the official racing controller. In addition, the controller is very hollow, With the Launch a Cool wheel, you can hook it to your table to keep it stable. But with the Sega controller, if you steer it too hard, it can shift entirely. I understand some racing controllers for the Dreamcast do have a foot pedal and brake like the one for the Ferrari game, so I'll try and look into that. Anyway, I found that playing third person, it was easier for me to use a controller, while playing first person, it felt more natural when using the wheel. And if you're someone who's into JDM cars, short for Japanese domestic market, then this is the game for you because it has a huge collection of Japanese cars for you to enjoy. However, due to copyright reasons, as opposed to the official names, the cars will be referred to by their chassis names. For example, a Toyota Truno or a Corolla in some places will simply be referred to as an AE86, and if you want the classic Nissan Fairlady Z or the .240Z outside of Japan, the game will simply refer to it as the S30ZX. But if you're looking for certain cars like the Blackbird from One Gun Midnight, which is a classic Porsche 911, then non-Japanese cars won't be found in this game. Usually you have to buy a car within your initial budget, and as you participate and win races, you can get more money to further upgrade your car or get an additional one, so all the races do add additional incentive to participate. Let's just say with my Fairlady ZS30, I practically made it into the Devil's Z from One Gun Midnight. It's very powerful and hard to control, but still fun to play. The graphics, especially if you play it on an HD or a VGA monitor, are still very impressive to this day. I have been on the One Gun on a number of times, though on a bus, and I must say that the game does a very excellent job of capturing that very highway and its surrounding buildings accurately well. For example, when you're passing through Odaiba, you will see the Big Sight building. Though I couldn't capture the footage for this review, but on my Instagram account, I do have a video of me passing by it using an AE86 while playing on a VGA monitor, so I'll post that respective video in the description. It's the third video, and while you're at it, see how awesome it looks on a VGA monitor as well. And I have to say that the roads are a lot smaller in person, and whenever you win a race, you'll be treated to a replay, and it will give you time to really appreciate the visuals. The music stands out more when watching the replays. It has a sci-fi techno-y feel to it, but because of my exposure to Initial D and Yuzo Koshio's tracks for the One Gun Midnight Maximum Tune series, I felt the music of this game was underwhelming. But by no means does that negate the overall experience. But whenever I post my play videos on my Instagram, I'll just put in a track from Initial D or One Gun Midnight just to spice things up. The only addition I would make would be police chases, which would be kind of funny. But then again, maybe Han from the Fast and the Furious series is right when he said if you exceed 180 kilometers per hour, they won't bother trying to catch you. But I don't want to spread another possible, Japan myth, just like how other influencers are doing right now. Or do I? While I'm still relatively new to this series, and despite being aware of other installments and a new installment now under beta testing, I still find myself content with this game. While it may not be the overall best racing game of all time, but if you're looking for something unique and want to experience Tokyo's highways with Japan's coolest cars on the best console of all time, then Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2 is what you're looking for. But as I said before, the game is best played with a steering wheel, but try to find one that includes a brake and a pedal if that's your preference.